Hey, family. Welcome to the Real Talk Podcast with Andrea. I'm glad to have you in this space. And you already know we don't do perfect over here. So let's talk. Before we get into today's conversation, I want to say this first. This episode may be difficult for some people to listen to emotionally because today we're talking about domestic violence, trauma, emotional abuse, mental health, and the reality that too many women and men are losing their lives in situations where they tried to leave. And for Mental Health Awareness Month, I didn't want to avoid these conversations because mental health and domestic violence are connected in more ways than people realize. Fear affects mental health, trauma affects mental health, living in survival mode affects mental health, emotional abuse affects mental health, and sometimes people are drowning emotionally while trying to survive dangerous relationships. So if this conversation feels heavy for you today, give yourself permission to pause if you need to, and if you are somebody currently experiencing abuse or violence, please know you deserve support, safety, and help. You know what breaks my heart? How many stories we keep hearing about women finally trying to leave and not making it out safely. And every time one of these stories happens, people on the outside always ask the same questions afterward. Why didn't she leave sooner? She should have seen the signs. I would have never stayed. But people who have never lived through emotional abuse often don't understand what survival mode actually does to somebody mentally. Recently, there was a story about a woman who ended a relationship. She tried to move forward with her life, and she lost her life after being shot multiple times by someone she once loved. And honestly, that story disturbed me deeply, not just because of the violence, but because this keeps happening over and over again. Too many people are dying trying to leave unhealthy relationships. Too many people are suffering silently in relationships filled with fear, control, emotional abuse, and violence. And too many people are carrying trauma from these situations long after the relationship ends. And this is why conversations around mental health have to be bigger than just a diagnosis. Because toxic relationships, they affect people mentally too. Living in fear affects people mentally. Constant arguing affects people mentally. Walking on eggshells every day affects people mentally. And being controlled emotionally affects people mentally. And that right there changes people emotionally over time. Imagine being in a relationship where you constantly have to watch what you say, watch how you move, watch how somebody might react emotionally, and imagine feeling scared to leave because you don't know what the other person might do. That's not love, that's survival. And let's really talk about this honestly. People don't always stay in abusive situations because they want to be there. Sometimes they stay because they're emotionally broken down over time. Sometimes they stay because they're financially trapped. Sometimes they stay because they're scared. Sometimes they stay because they've been isolated from support and family and friends. Sometimes they stay because the abuse didn't start violently. A lot of abusive relationships start with control first. Jealousy disguised as love, isolation disguised as protection, and possessiveness disguised as passion. And slowly, people lose themselves emotionally without even realizing how deep it's going. And I want to ask something important. How many warning signs do people normalize because they think it's love? Checking phones constantly, controlling who somebody talks to, extreme jealousy, threats, emotional manipulation, and those things matter. And something else people don't talk about enough, even after somebody leaves an abusive relationship, the mental impact doesn't automatically disappear. Some people leave relationships and still battle anxiety afterward. Panic attacks, trust issues, depression, fear afterward, because trauma stays in the body emotionally. So if somebody you know is struggling in a toxic or abusive relationship, lead with support, not judgment. Don't shame them for staying. Don't make them feel weak. Create safe conversations and safe space for them. Help them feel supported enough to make safe decisions because leaving is often the most dangerous time in an abusive situation. And I also want to say this clearly. If you are in danger, please reach out for help. Talk to somebody safe, reach out to local domestic violence resources, create a safety plan because you don't have to survive this alone. I know God never intended love to feel like fear, control, or survival mode. Love should not leave you emotionally destroyed. Love should not constantly make you feel unsafe. And before we close this episode, I just want to say this for every person silently struggling right now. Your life matters, your safety matters, your mental health matters, and you deserve relationships where peace exists too. Because sometimes the most dangerous relationships are the ones people outside the situation never realized were dangerous at all. Let's heal and grow together, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.